Friends, we really want to remind the viewers that the answers are channeled answers, and that they might be saying something that is not palatable to our ears, but don't we want to consider whether or not we want to hear what divine voices are saying, and to take it to heart and see if we can find a way to adjust our thinking so that we can see the points that they are making. Really, they don't have to help us, and we think that this is the real point. This is a boots on the ground soul, and saying there's a basic confusion about whether or not angelic presences are required to help humanity, and they are not required to help humanity. We really need to get this, friends. We really need to take it to heart. They do not have to help humanity, and we need to become less unpleasant to work with. We really need to come around the corner on this. We really do. As a species and as individuals also. Does that answer the question? There's a little bit more to this question, and that's the implications of it.
Yeah, that's true.
That angelic presences do not have to help any of us. We're all accountable under divine law for what happens. The law of cause and effect is real. None of us get away with anything ever. The only question is how much bad karma we accumulate before the mousetrap snaps on us. And if we accumulate a lot, that snap is going to be long and hard, and we're going to have lifetime upon lifetime of absolute misery.
That's true.
And it's just a mathematical calculation. It's not anybody being mean.
It's
true. How the system works. And arguing with the system doesn't make the system go away. It's like arguing with gravity.
Yeah.
If you throw a rock up, it's still going to come down, and if you throw it straight up, karma is like throwing a rock straight up.
Yeah.
Everything we do goes straight up. It's recorded, and then it comes back down on our heads. And
That's
so
true.
consider what is it you want to fall back down on your head. For him is the message. Why do you ask? Does that answer the question? Quick, let's get another question on the table.
Here we go.
Somebody says.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Our next question comes from an anonymous viewer who says, "Hey ladies, do the angels discriminate based on gender or sexuality?"
Do the angels discriminate based on gender and sexuality? I see a presence in that higher dimension room of angels and godly presences who is preparing to answer, and he has the air of an academician.
Yes, that's
like
true.
an advisor, a counselor to the people who are making the decisions. He looks a little uncomfortable. He's kind of clearing his throat. And saying that there are a lot of assumptions built into this question, and the thing is that when there is a big job that needs to happen, a lot of aspects are taken into consideration when deciding which of the applicable candidates to hire. And when they say applicable candidates, they mean souls of humanity or of other species.
That's true.
Who are saying, I'll do that job for you. And they're talking about how many candidates they hire. My attention is drawn to this very large spider that's hovering right near us as if floating in midair. It's one of those really big banana spiders.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if he's going to be coming through the frame of the shot, but kind of put your fingers
like there in between the hands.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool.
There he is.
So that means something quite obviously.
Yeah, it does.
Right? Somebody climbing up to God, right?
Yep.
On what looks like invisible air. But is something of his or her own making.
That's true.
And so this is how we can get to divine presences, going up with something of our own making. So this presence, this academician, this advisor is talking about when there are important jobs that they wind up lots and lots of souls. For really important jobs,
Yeah.
1,000,000 souls. For less important job, 100,000 souls, etc. And that all those souls are contractually obligated to fulfill the responsibility, but there's redundancy, backup built into the system so
That's
that
true.
hopefully the thing happens. And that for the last 30 years, every single human who's been sent into ground zero planet Earth is coming in with the assignment to turn humanity around. It's headed hard in the wrong direction, destroying everything. Beep, 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 beep. All hands on deck, turn it around. Now, that having been said, some people get more resources and others get fewer
That's
resources
true.
with which to fulfill that same obligation. And when the masses have, for example, let's say gender bias, then if you really want something done, the thinking upstairs has been, we're going to have to give those resources to men because nobody listens to women,
That's
just
true.
to take an example.
Yeah.
And what they're finding is that that's not working, that men are still just waggling their privates at each other and funding warfare and bullying and not dealing with the real problems.
That's true.
Now, as to sexuality, there are many, this godly presence is continuing. There are many souls who have chosen an unpopular sexuality, unpopular sexual orientation, so as to work off some bad karma, to practice being somebody who might be discriminated against.
That's true.
Maybe they were bullies to people of other genders in the past,
previous
for
lives.
example. Yes. And that often the choices of sexuality are simply to learn lessons of various types, and to not twist that into saying that that means that gay people are less advanced souls, because usually they're far
Exactly.
more advanced than the
That's
rank
true.
and file.
That's true.
The rank and file chooses easy lives in answer to somebody else's question.
That's
Why is
right.
that? The rank and file chooses easy lives,
That's
and
true.
it's more difficult when you have complications like gender orientation, sexual orientation, etc.
That's right.
I think they said literally gender
They said
orientation.
gender
They might be talking about the
orientation.
transgender people.
That's what I assume they're
Mhm.
talking about, because that was the exact word.
Gender orientation, and also sexuality.
That's true.
There's a long discussion on sexuality that was recently given. I think it's episode 1022.
It might literally be. We can link to it.
So the point is that it's not that the angels are discriminating
Yeah.
between humans, because all ants are first and foremost ants.
Yeah.
And to the angels, humanity is about as important as an ant would
Yes,
be to a
it's true.
human. Like we're unimportant.
Yeah.
We don't matter. We really
Yes.
need to get that we're unimportant and we don't matter, and then be less unpleasant to work with.
That's true.
And so they're not discriminating in that way, although
No.
gender bias is real in all the dimensions.
That's what someone's talking
Yeah.
about upstairs.
And so there is gender bias in their own society in all levels. And we are aware of alternate sexuality, higher dimension presences.
yes, that's true.
And they're not fully comfortable with everybody knowing about their alternate sexuality.
That's
so
true.
presumably there's prejudice in their own dimensions
That's true.
for alternate sexuality and gender, exactly as there is here, but not interdimensionally. Interdimensionally, the main point is it's interdimensional.
No,
And
that's
you're
true.
all humans down there, and we'd just squish you all equally. We don't really care about that.
Yeah, that's true.
And this really circles around to the really important point, is that they are higher powers. They don't have to help us.
That's true.
They do decide how karmic law applies in our situations, and to be less unpleasant to work with. All of us, really, to really take it to heart. Me too, me too,
Me
me too, me
too.
too. Does that answer the question? So friends, what we see happening is that's what those godly presences are saying.
Yeah,
And then there's a boots on the ground soul or somebody who seems affiliated with the individual guardian angels of humanity.
Yeah.
It's like that's what that's what Congress says, and now the IRS has to decide how to implement this.
Yeah.
And this presence feels like a guardian angel community member who's attempting to figure out how to implement the proclamations from on high.
That's true.
And they're saying that the key point is to remember that they do make the rules, and that higher powers exactly are higher powers, and to see if we can find a way to adjust our human thinking, pointing to all of us.
Yeah.
But they're also meaning adjust their own guardian angel thinking also.
That's true.
See if we can find a way to adjust our thinking so that we can see the point that the higher powers are making, and to find joy in carrying out the assignment and not be grumpy about it.
That's true.
And that it's important for all of us to work with our attitudes, and that our attitudes are actually the only thing that we have control over. And we can get grumpy about what godly presences are saying.
That's true.
Or we can find a better way to think about it, and to consider that maybe they know more than we do. And maybe they have access to information that we don't have access to. And to see if we can pull our heads out of wherever we're trying to wedge our heads and just be pleasant and have a good attitude, and work like we intend to do a good job. And that part is up to us, to each of us. Every I, every we, every us, every me. It's up to us to have a good attitude. Does that answer the question? There's this feeling upstairs of somebody wanting to rush through all these questions.
Yeah.
And like, let's get this unpleasant task over with. Let's just get this over with. And we don't really like participating in that kind of process, because without adequate time to evaluate what's going on, mistakes often occur that are otherwise avoidable.
That's true.
So we really do think that what might be helpful is listening to the guardian angel community for just a moment. And they're talking about work that's being done with the saints.
Yeah, that's what they're talking
and
about.
How there's a test that's being run that's an extremely important test, and it's being run in at least 2 different locations of which we have awareness, but presumably other locations as well. And the test is that an actual godly presence is on ground zero, planet Earth, boots on the ground, down here in ground zero, in at least 2 locations. Psychics have spotted them in at least 2 different locations.
That's true.
There could be other locations also, but one of them, there is literally, we're not making this up, some Latino man who's walking north through Central America toward the Mexican border with the intent to get to the United States.
That's true.
And it's literally the soul of Yeshua, who, for unclear reasons, many people call Jesus or Jesus, but his name was Yeshua.
Yeah.
And so he's literally, and multiple psychics have confirmed the sightings, walking north through Central America to the States. And so far, nobody has recognized him.
That's true.
Nobody. Not ideal. That's if humanity is failing that test.
Yes.
And there's somebody else, the soul of Krishna and Rama,
that's
Hindu
right.
gods, who are literally in that Myanmar, Bangladesh area is one of the Rohingya refugees who are Hindu.
That's true.
In the Buddhist country of Myanmar, and nobody's recognizing, it's like that's Rama and Krishna,
Yes.
who are different incarnations of the same soul. That
Yeah.
soul, who is both Rama and Krishna, is now in a refugee
Yeah.
in that Bangladesh, Myanmar area, spotted by multiple psychics.
That's true.
Just like that guy in Central America, spotted by multiple psychics, is Yeshua,
That's
who
true.
some people call Jesus, who other people call Jesus, but whose historic name was Yeshua.
That's true.
And that if humanity can't find and recognize those people and treat them appropriately, then we fail. We fail a super important test.
That's true.
So to consider to treat all refugees as if those were the right people, right? Can we just treat all the refugees like they're God come to earth? Now would be a really good time to do that, because we're being tested right now as a collective. We are. This is that same presence who works with the guardian angel community, and they're trying to figure out how to implement what the godly presences just said.
That's true.
And they said that sometimes in listening to these promulgations from above, what matters most is to get the tone. What was the tone of the communication? And if we understand the tone properly, then the implementation will occur properly. And we see now in a higher dimension room what looks like a committee of guardian angels, and
That's
they all
true.
have stature. They're really high-ranking guardian angels, and they're trying to figure out how to interpret what was just said, so that they can share it with the other guardian angels, so that this can trickle down into ground zero planet Earth appropriately.
That's true.
And we know that in the hypnosis work, it's often helpful to help a person orient to emotions by saying happy, sad, or some other way. I would say some other way.
Some other way.
Some other way. Angry or peaceful? More angry.
More angry than peaceful.
Yeah, not happy. That is not a happy communication. Not
That's true.
happy, and kind of not out of patience. Not happy,
Not happy.
and not feeling benevolent,
No.
and not feeling like continuing previous gifts of grace.
Yes, that's
And
true.
this guardian angel presence is talking about a very common error,
Yeah.
which is to pretend that previous gifts of grace will continue to arrive regardless of what we do or say or think or how we behave, and that's just crazy, and that meaning ground zero planet Earth, but somebody else is looking up as if they're thinking, us also, us
Yeah.
the guardian angels also, that we have been given so many gifts of grace for so long that we forget that they are being given to us as gifts, and that grace is a privilege and not a right, and we're acting as though grace, divine grace, is a right, and we don't have a right to divine grace.
That's true.
It's a privilege, and to remember that and stop pretending that previous gifts of grace will continue to arrive regardless. Gifts of grace are running out when godly voices sound like that.
That's true.
To really take it to heart, and to be a life that divine presences want to help is probably the most important thing that we can do. And how we do that is we turn around and help someone. Turn around and help someone who is in need. And there's always somebody in greater need. Always, always, always. All we have to do is look at worms or soil microbes.
That's true.
Quick fix. Look at the grasshoppers. They're having troubles. Look at the toads. The amphibians are really, really, really struggling.
That's true.
There's a lot of presences in greater need, and to turn around and help them. And in that way, we do something to make up for our, we're overdrawn on our grace accounts. to get our grace accounts back in balance. Because that's what that tone was.
Yeah.
That tone was that the godly presences affiliated with planet Earth think that humanity is overdrawn on their grace accounts.
Yes, that's true.
That's not good.
Does that answer the question? No.
Oh yeah, does that answer the question? Wrap, submit, boom, right? Because that's, rather than draw another question, let's explain that one. It's like, wow, friends, they're pissed. Calm down.